burning police van. There might have possibly been some legitimate charges, although to be honest, I'm not sure what. Generally speaking, I think they probably were within their charter guaranteed civil rights and freedoms. I suppose the material could have been construed as being hate speech against the police, but blasphemy? I don't think so. Simply because the last time I checked, the Service de Police de la Ville de Montreal is not a religion, even if some SPVM cops might believe they're saints. So anyhow, that I found to be quite amusing, and it actually, I don't think it impinges on my glory of actually being accused of blasphemous libel by a religious community. A religious community that apparently didn't really pay attention to jurisprudence on blasphemy law, because in accusing me of blasphemous libel, that is, in accusing me of blaspheming against the Unitarian Universalist Church for criticizing such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers and certain Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers and other ordinary Unitarian Universalists, they, I think quite inadvertently, essentially deemed pedophilia and rape, at least when committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers, to be sacred and holy to Unitarian Universalism. Because how can I be blaspheming against Unitarian Universalism by speaking disparagingly of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers and Sunday school teachers, if such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape aren't held to be sacred and holy to Unitarian Universalism? I mean, the whole thing about blasphemy is that you have to be attacking what is held to be sacred and holy by a religion. So I don't think top-level UUA leadership, to say nothing of the UUA Stikeman Elliott lawyer, thought that one through. If only they had engaged in a free and responsible search for the truth and meaning of falsely accusing me of blasphemous libel before actually doing so. They might have saved themselves some considerable embarrassment. And on top of that, Unitarian Universalism might still have its centuries-old tradition of opposing blasphemy laws intact, where it is no longer intact. That's a point that I haven't mentioned yet today. I've mentioned it in previous protests, but it is a fact that even prior to merging in 1961 into the Unitarian Universalist Association, both the Unitarian Church in America and globally, and the Universalist Church in America and elsewhere, both opposed blasphemy laws, because they were usually on the wrong end of blasphemy laws, because both Unitarianism and Universalism were heretical sects of Christianity. By the way, when I say sects, I mean S-E-C-T-S, not S-E-X, just to be clear. Heretical sects. Try and pronounce that properly. But yeah, there is a certain overlap there in terms of how they sound. Say nothing of other things. But in any case, getting back to the centuries-old tradition of opposing blasphemy laws that Unitarians and Universalists adhered to for centuries, it ended on Friday, June 1st of 2012, when the Unitarian Universalist Association accused me of violating Canada's blasphemy law in immoral and unethical and borderline criminal and, yes, of course, batshit crazy legal bullying, which sought to conceal such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers. So that is unfortunately that. The Unitarian Universalist religious community basically violated and ended their tradition of opposing blasphemy laws on Friday, June 1st of 2012, to say nothing of earlier, because it obviously, took some weeks and maybe some months to make all the arrangements to hire, whoops-a-daisy, Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe to falsely accuse me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel. This didn't happen just in one day on Friday, June 1st of 2012 when I got the email in my inbox. Obviously, there was some planning and conspiring and colluding that went into that in the previous weeks and months, if not some years. But I think it was something they did fairly quickly. I don't think it was spread over years. I think it was spread over a few months or a few weeks. Most ironically, I have very reasonable grounds to believe that the very reason that I was accused of violating Canada's blasphemy law is precisely because in 2010, the Unitarian Universalist Association signed on to an amicus brief, that is a petition to the court, or petition to the state perhaps, that was opposing the use of Pennsylvania's blasphemy law against a Pennsylvania, I believe, bar owner who had the word hell in the name of his bar. So essentially some poor, hapless Pennsylvania bar or tavern owner, if I understand this correctly, was accused of violating Pennsylvania's blasphemy law just because the word hell was in his name, of the name of his business. And the UUA, Unitarian Universalist Association, signed on to this amicus brief in 2010, which, amongst other things, said that all blasphemy laws are unconstitutional. Now, the person who coordinates the work of the Unitarian Universalist Association's attorneys is, or was at the time, UUA Executive Vice President Kathleen K. Montgomery. So Kathleen K. Montgomery certainly knew about this amicus brief that the UUA signed on to, because she was informed of this by the Unitarian Universalist Association's legal counsel in Massachusetts. And so I think what probably happened is that an outrageously hypocritical and far from ethical Kathleen K. Montgomery thought, oh, hey, now there's an idea. Why don't we see if Canada's got a blasphemy law, and we'll accuse Rob and Edgar of violating Canada's blasphemy law to intimidate him into taking down his blog posts about Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell and Richard Buell, and to basically intimidate him into not speaking about other Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and rapists, like, let's say, Stephen Craig Bullite, for instance. So that's, I'm speculating here, but I think that's reasonable speculation about what happened based on available evidence. There's no question that in 2010, the issue of blasphemy laws was put in front of Kathleen K. Montgomery, and so she was aware of blasphemy laws, and she was also aware of the fact that Unitarian Universalists, as a rule, oppose blasphemy laws, and thought, oh, who cares about that centuries-old tradition of opposing blasphemy laws that Unitarian Universalists have held to for, you know, centuries. Getting a little repetitive here, but that's not unusual. You know, that's essentially what happened, I believe, is that K. Montgomery said, screw that centuries-old tradition of blasphemy law opposition. Screw that. Forget it, you know, fuck it. She likes to use the word, I think she likes to use that term, fuck it, or fuck that. Yeah, I think it's fuck that. So that's probably what happened. Kathleen K. Montgomery became aware of blasphemy laws, or was reminded about blasphemy laws as a result of this amicus brief that crossed her desk that said, oh, fuck that tradition of opposing blasphemy laws that we Unitarian Universalists have held to for centuries. Fuck that. Let's use Canada's blasphemy law against Rob and Edgar to silence him, to intimidate him into taking down his blog posts about such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell and Richard Buell, and intimidate him into not speaking about such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by other Unitarian Universalist clergy and other Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers, etc. I think that's a reasonable speculation regarding how I came to be accused of violating Canada's blasphemy law in the spring of 2012. Just less than 2 years, if I remember correctly, or only slightly more than 2 years after blasphemy laws were, you know, basically K. Montgomery was reminded about them. And obviously he did not care about that tradition of opposing blasphemy laws. So that's it for now. That's on the second half hour of the protest here. It's wrapping up. Glad to see it was all recorded. I'm debating whether I stick around.